Hey everybody, welcome to the latest episode of the Rock Experience with Mike Brunn. On this episode, I'm joined by living legend Felix Cavaliere. He's going to talk all about his time performing, writing, and recording with the Rascals, as well as working with Vinnie Vincent, his new book that's coming out, touring in 2022, and much more. So much to cover with this legend. I think you guys are going to really enjoy it. So let's jump in and let's get started. All right, awesome. Well, Felix, first off, I just want to say thank you. It's great to have a legend such as yourself on the show today. And just for everybody who's watching, listening, etc., what have you been up to the past 2 years? It's been a little crazy, obviously, for musicians, especially you, your family, everybody been healthy and okay?
Yeah, thank goodness everybody's been healthy. Okay. No, we're pretty much, we're kind of like isolated as
Mm-hmm.
far as traveling and touring and stuff like that. Our business has really taken quite a hit, as you know.
Absolutely.
But so in the meantime, what I've been doing and what I'm happy to say is that I've been finishing a book
Yes.
that's supposed to come out in March, and I also was finishing a CD because we have the online. We can do that online. I had started it before the pandemic started, and
Okay.
I was able to finish it in the house in the studio that I have in my home. So I'm trying to keep busy, trying to keep writing, trying to keep sane, because it's tough not being on the road when you used to be on the road all the time.
No, I mean, you've been doing this for decades,
So,
so I'm sure it's been tough the last 2 years. But like you said, you do have a book coming out in a couple of weeks, Memoir of a Rascal. So what made you decide now, all these years later, hey, let me write a book?
I'll tell you, in 2013, I was with my old bandmates
Yep.
doing Once Upon a Dream. We did a Broadway show there, and yeah, press conferences where we do that. They sit us down, the four of us, and ask us. Everybody had a different answer for the same question.
Sure.
So I said, wait a second, maybe I should put my story down
Mm.
because I could have sworn I was there. And it's really interesting when you ask the same question, like, for example, how'd you get the name?
Right.
How'd the band start? How tall are you? Everybody had like their version of, and I said nope. So that's really what was kind of like the catalyst.
Yep, that makes sense. So for you as a songwriter all these years, how is it different writing a book compared to writing a song?
Oh boy, I'd much rather write a song. Well, seriously, I mean, you're telling the same stories that you have, you're of course lived
Sure.
over and over and over and over and over and over and over, and you're talking about yourself for a long time. I mean, like some of these people, like Stephen King and people like that. I don't know how the heck they do it. I mean, these guys put out such volumes. John Grisham, and it's very different. When you do a song, you're kind of making up something. You don't necessarily have to make an autobiography of a song. You can pretend, you can fantasize, you can dream, and heck of a lot more fun than reality.
And it's interesting because whether it's authors or actors, they always want to be rock stars. So maybe that's why, right? So I guess for you, you grew up in New York, right? Not too far from where I am. At what age did you start to say, hey, I could do this for a living? I think, I think I can make a career out of this.
Well, actually, I've told this story before us also. I really had no idea
Mhm.
that this was going to happen to me. I was in school, basically for pre-med up in Syracuse. Started a band and went to the Catskills for a summer. Yeah, no, basically, as I say, I went overseas with Joey D and the Starliners.
Yep.
I was, instead of going back to college, I went overseas because they needed an organist. And what happened over there is the Beatles opened up for Joey's band.
Yep.
And that's what I really saw and said, like, wow, this is something that I think I can do. I think I would enjoy. And that really was the kind of like, okay, let me give it a try.
Right. And look, you've made an incredible career out of it. Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Grammy Hall of Fame, Songwriters Hall of Fame, and others, right? The list could go on and on. Are there any one of those that to you, one of those recognitions really like meant a lot? Songwriters, rock and roll, does any of those mean a lot to you over the others?
Well, obviously they all mean a lot. I mean, the thing is, it's nice to be recognized, for want of a better word. But the one that really, really clicked is the Songwriters Hall of Fame. Because first of all, it's not well known. It's not televised. They don't have a museum. And the group of people who are inducted, so to speak, pretty special. I mean, you're talking about people, like Sammy Kahn and Cole Porter. That's quite a crew.
Right.
Whereas, the other awards, they are a little bit more contemporary. I don't think they go back as far as, the 30s and 40s and 50s. So that one really, really, really rings to me.
Yeah, I can understand. Like that's like validating the work that you did as a songwriter and musician for all those years. So I could fully understand that. And to me, like the accolades for you keep coming, right? So next week you get another award for free speech and music, if I'm not mistaken, right? So what is that all about?
Correct. Well, it's just like it sounds. It's there's a freedom of speech kind of like crew that basically have been kind of demonstrating for the years. As a gentleman by the name of Ken Paulson, who I met many years ago, who's kind of the chairman of this situation. He's certainly the MC, and it's something that like you're proud to be part of. Because especially in today's world, it's a big subject right now.
You think so? Huh?
It's a big subject.
Yeah.
And, we're lucky enough to be American, where you supposedly can say what you want, which is sometimes dangerous, very dangerous, but at least you can say what you want, and that's not the case in a lot of other places. So we take it pretty seriously. And then, of course, through the music and through the songs and through the lyrics, to be able to say what you want and to be able to have people hear it, pretty amazing.
Right.
So, I think something we should be really kind of like proud of, conscious of, and, careful of.
Right. And this is a message that's been in your music for decades, right? So even just going back to the 60s, which was also a time different, but similar to some of the things that we're experiencing today, right? And you have the song, People Gotta Be Free, about tolerance and freedom, right? So talk a little bit about that song. And to me, that song still resonates today, 40, 50 years later, 60 years later. It's amazing.
Well, the thing, those days, those of us in the music business, we were much more aware of these subjects than I think contemporary artists, with all due respect, are a little afraid to say what they really think. Is that what you really think? Because, I do a song live called A Ray of Hope, which is one of our songs that we had, which actually was written right during the time of all the assassinations of, Robert Kennedy and Martin Luther King. And I was looking at a ray of hope in one of the politicians that was out there. Today, if you write a song like that, you're going to make people angry. You're going to make people separated from you. And that's stupid.
Yep.
Because if you don't have a right, to say what you think, and if you don't think the way I think, then I don't want to be around you.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, the exception is if you come and knock on my door and try to sell me your thesis, that's a little different.
Right.
But if I don't ask you and you believe something different from me, I don't see any problem with that.
Right.
So that's what we have to deal with today. But in our day, many of the people, at least in my mind, many of the people that were making music, we had we had a kind of like a way that we wanted to change things for the better. We
Yep.
really now the better is a it's a word that you can some people can think it's better, some people can think it's better to go backwards, you know, and some people think it's better to go forwards,
Sure.
and some people think well maybe we should stay the same the way we are. Well, most of my generation wanted to go forwards,
Right.
and that scares people. That's what scares people.
It does.
They don't
Yes.
want to go forward. They want.
Mhm.
So, but I mean, going backwards is kind of funny. I don't know if I could do it.
Right.
So, but anyway, that's the explanation of that award. It's an honorary award that I take very seriously. Yes.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great thing. So you mentioned before new music. You're going out on tour this summer, right? Who would have ever thought 50 years, 60 years into your career, right? You'd still be touring. I think that's a great thing. Talk a little bit about the summer tour, and will we hear new music on the summer tour?
Well, the summer tours, I'm supposed to do something with Mickey Dolenz.
Yep.
We're going to hook up a rascal and a monkey, which I think should be a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
As far as new music, it all depends on, the time that they give you to perform.
Of course.
If they say you got 45 minutes, you really don't have time for new music,
Sure.
And then again, the audience that comes to see you, do they expect to hear old music or new music? So what I try to do is to make them hear the music that they feel are paying for to hear,
Sure.
and just kind of lighten it up a little bit. I won't say modernize it, but just make sure that they enjoy it, from a memory point of view.
Mm-hmm. Yep. No, I mean, that's a great position to be in when you have a catalog of music like your own, right? So I totally understand that thought process. Now, before you said that, rightly so, there hasn't been very little touring for the last couple of years because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Yet in December, you played a show, a fundraiser with Alice Cooper, which to me, I see some of the people on that lineup, Alice Cooper, Tom Morello, Ace Frehley, ex-Kiss guitar player. And I'm like, wow, that's a unique blend of people. How was that show for you? And how did you get involved in that?
Well, I've known Alice for a number of years.
Yep.
And actually, it worked out perfectly because my wife's family is out there in Arizona.
Okay.
So here's a chance to go to Arizona during the holidays and perform.
Right.
So it worked out perfectly. It was a lot of fun. It's a great event. Alice is really something really to be proud of because he raises so much money for that community, the teens. There was prior to the acts that you named going on stage.
Yep.
There's a bunch of kids groups and
Sure.
cheerleaders and dancers, and it's really very, very nice. Very nice. He calls it the pudding, right?
Right. Christmas pudding, I think. Too.
Yeah, and he does it every year, and he's to be commended for that. It was really fun.
Right. That's awesome. Now, it's amazing to me, obviously, your first hit of your career, Good Lovin'. Some people don't realize that's a cover tune, right? So
Right.
How did that come in? Even just this past weekend, I was talking to a big music friend of mine. It's like, that's a cover? I had no idea, right? How did that song come into your repertoire of songs that you were performing and ultimately recording?
Well, those days, the clubs were 21 and over.
Yep.
So if you were going to work in a club, the proprietors, the owners, they didn't want to hear original songs.
Sure.
They wanted, as a matter of fact, it's still like that in a lot of the places, they want to do what they call cover bands, cover. So what we would do is go out of our way to find songs that we could prove were covers.
Yep.
That were a little more interesting than what was on the charts. So there was many places that we could hear, in New Rochelle, New York, there was a record store that I used to go to where, in those days you could go in the booth and try them out and listen to them.
Sure. Yep.
Before you bought them. And also there was these radio stations that were, mostly like R&B black stations that played stuff that, for example, Let's Thank Sally,
Yep.
Good Lovin', that we're never going to get over onto the other stations. They were never going to get there, and not in their present versions. So I would take those songs, we put them into our repertoire. And the one good thing about playing in front of people is you get an instant reaction. I like this. I don't like this.
Sure.
Usually you can tell when people get up and dance.
Yeah.
Well, the first time we ever did Good Lovin', people got up out of their seat and danced.
Right.
So it was like it was a winner. You knew it was a winner. The record
Right.
company that came to Atlantic when they came to sign us, they saw that. And so the first album that we did was mostly, as you say, covers, but there were our versions of covers.
Exactly.
You
Yeah.
know, and that's what makes it different.
Right. So to me, that if I hear Good Lovin', your version is what I'll call the definitive version. Would you agree with
Yes.
that?
Absolutely.
Okay. Very good.
Yeah.
Now on that first,
because you know, the public decides that, not us.
Yep.
You know, the public decides that.
Yep. No, I agree with that. And to me, the public's made it loud and clear that that's the definitive version.
Exactly. That's
now
the one.
on that first album, though, you did have one, to me, as far as I know, your first co-write that was published, right? Do you feel it? So what do you remember about that song, and how were you able to get one of your own songs onto the album?
Well, we had pretty good production control during those years. Matter of fact, we produced ourselves. We had some of the greatest people in the world behind this booth, but we were in control of that. So if we wanted to put that song on the album, we could put that song on the album.
Nice.
As I say, we really did not have our new songs ready for when we were signed. Our group got a record deal within 6 months of
Amazing.
It was amazing.
That is amazing.
Well, that was the plan. That was the plan. You know, when I put the group together, I really felt I had chosen the most talented people that I could find for their instruments in my sphere of influence, which was, you know, New York City. At least wasn't like, you know, a little tiny town.
Sure.
You know, so we had basically a group of people who pretty much, with the exception of Eddie, who was a little young, were leaders of their own bands.
Right.
So you had a dynamo quartet.
Mm-hmm.
And so well, not that I wasn't surprised, but I wasn't surprised when we got a deal so quick. We had a good band.
No, you absolutely did. So to that point, you mentioned before the importance of songwriting and what that meant to you. Talk about what it was like for you and Eddie songwriting together.
Well, it was a different experience, you know, because obviously we're trying to emulate Paul and John, you know, because it's actually more fun to write with somebody than to write by yourself. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like I was telling you about the book. I know what I'm going to say.
Right.
You know, but with him, I never knew what he was going to say. And I mean, that can definitely, you know, it could be anything, you know, could be fit for print or not, you know? So, you know, I mean, you know, the difference between those days and these days, in the beginning, you know, of so-called, you know, 60s music from a band point of view, prior to us, people got their songs from publishers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, you didn't write your own songs until Dylan, Beatles, Stones,
Sure.
you know, Beach Boys. After a while, it became the norm. But prior to that, nobody wrote their own songs.
That's
Paul
true.
Anka was an exception. You know. But most people went to a publishing house. So this was all new ground.
Yep.
The other thing that people don't realize is that in those days, you weren't going to become a gazillionaire.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, you weren't going to become a gazillionaire until Led Zeppelin came along. And then, and the reason for that is because of the international marketplace, that the record companies now had one company all over the world. See, when we were on Atlantic, every country of the world was a separate record. It was a nightmare.
Yep.
You know, I mean, you didn't have one record. Well, Atlantic's going to put out Good Lovin' all over the world. No,
it wasn't.
They
like
had
that.
to write it. It wasn't like that. When Zeppelin came along, Warner Brothers bought Atlantic.
Right.
Now, it was an international label.
Mm-hmm.
So all of a sudden, people started adding those zeros to their income.
Right.
But, so in answer to your question, in the early days, it was really fun.
Right. Right.
It wasn't that pressure on you, you know, that basically, I mean, the pressure was on, well, you got to get on the radio. You got to get on the radio, you know.
Right.
But you weren't dealing with millions and millions of dollars, you know what I'm saying? So it was a little easy, you know.
Right.
And so we had a good time, you know. We enjoyed it. We fooled around with it, you know. It worked. People liked it. Very fortunate.
Right. No, I absolutely. And, you know, to me, one of the things that I love is you read about the Rascals, and I've seen them described different ways: blue-eyed soul, rock and roll, and to me, they're all valid. But if you were describing the Rascals' music, how would you describe it? Happy.
Joyous.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah. Well, that's what my name means. Felix means happy.
Right.
Happy
Okay. Right.
So if you listen to Rascal music, you should feel happy, and you should feel like, you're fortunate to be here on this planet, breathing in and out.
Right. That's great. Now, to me, it's amazing. If I've read this properly, the song "Groovin'," was it correct that the record company didn't even want to release that song?
Well, they do that all the time. Yeah.
Right.
They didn't
Amazing.
want to do that. They didn't want to do People Gotta Be Free. Record companies, have it's their right. I mean, they're paying for the studios, and they're paying for the tapes in those days, et cetera, side musicians, et cetera, whatever you're doing. But the bottom line is that they're not trying to make statements, or they're not trying to be creative. In most cases, they're trying to make money.
Sure, they're a business.
So, and the interesting story, the amount of groups that, were turned down, like, for example, the Beatles, Decca turned them down. That's
amazing.
Even like when I was on Epic for a while, and, the group Boston was on that label. And they used to have, in my friend Lenny Pizzi's office, they used to have one of the rejection slips for Boston.
That's great.
Because it happens to everyone.
Sure.
So they have their own mind of what they think is a hit.
Right.
Most of the times they're right. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you, because they're professionals and we're kids,
Mm-hmm.
But they weren't right that time.
They weren't right that time. And now the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame cites that as one of the 500 songs that shaped rock and roll music. So clearly you were right on that one, at least, right? So,
well, what they have to realize is, coming from New York City, there's a tremendous Latin population.
Absolutely.
Now everybody knows that around
Right.
the United States of America.
Yeah.
That music is important. I mean, it's really important because it's American now.
Sure.
And so I was aware of that community, and I had the opportunity to go to a couple of the concerts and shows. Wow, I was really impressed, because it's great. It was great. And so that was, part of it, and then, of course, as I go backwards in the story here to where I was working with my college band in the Catskill Mountains, Latin music was huge up there.
Yep.
So it was an attempt, basically to kind of just have a good summer afternoon on a Sunday with you can't bring your drums to the park.
No, you can't.
Right.
Oh, that's great. Now, one of the things I love this is MTV, obviously, most people know, huge in the 80s. And you had your song, wasn't your version of the song, right? But Pat Benatar covered You Better Run, your song, the second song ever played on MTV. And in my mind, really the first true rock song, right? So Video Killed the Radio Star was the first song. That's a little gimmicky. I understand that. You Better Run was the second song ever played on MTV. You didn't know that? Oh, wow. Okay. So obviously, yep.
No, I did not know that.
All right. Well, there you go.
As they say, Mazel Tov.
There you go.
Good for us.
That's right. That's right. Now, I'm assuming you've heard Pat Benatar's version of the song.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah.
What do you think of her cover of that?
Oh, I liked it. I mean, it was good. It was good. It's always nice when somebody takes, like we did with Good Lovin', and they put their kind of like stamp on it. And her husband, they did a great job. He produced, that played, and she was great. She was great.
She is. Yeah, and she's up for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this year. And personally, I'm hoping she gets in. I think she's a great artist.
Yes, absolutely. No question about it.
Yeah. Now, have you ever heard Robert Plant's version of You Better Run? And also Peter Criss from Kiss covered it as well. Have you heard those two versions? And what do you think of those two? Yes.
Well, like I say, it's great to hear, their idea of what you did. It's just like it's kind of like respectful, you know what I mean? And so, I like it. I mean, do you like yours better? Yeah, maybe, you know what I'm saying? But I mean, like, better is not the word. That's just what I heard. That's what these gentlemen heard, ladies,
Right. Yep. So would you say, before we were saying Good Lovin', yours is the definitive version. There's no questions. I'll put you on the spot here. You Better Run, your version or Pat Benatar's? Which one's the definitive version?
Well, hers is because it's more well known.
There you go. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, she's that song made it to the chart. They did a great job of producing that, and that's the difference. That song came out one or two songs after Good Lovin'. That's tough, man.
Yeah, that
Because,
is
like I say, you're following a million seller, and
absolutely.
as I say, we were in charge, man. So just because we were in charge doesn't mean we know what we're doing.
But your version still went top 40, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, top 40 is different from she had a big hit.
Right, she did.
So definitive. That's the word, definitive.
Right.
It was a great job.
Right. So now I've heard you say in the past that, when the Rascals broke up, Eddie just, and I'll say, quote, up and quit is the words I've heard you say. Have you ever got understanding of why he decides up and quit? And where do you think the Rascals would have gone had he not quit at that point?
Well, I tell you, theories is all I have.
Of course.
I mean, basically nobody's ever explained it. And, I mean, I think I get it. It was a sad situation then. And to me, it still is a sad situation. Where we could have gone, well, those zeros I was talking about?
Yeah, the Led Zeppelin zeros.
We'd have had a lot of zeros.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, damn it. And not only that, but I think we would have made a lot more really good music,
Agreed.
Because after all, it's not just about the money, but it is about the money.
Right. Well, you need to make a living. They don't call it the music. No, but it's the music business, right? You do have to make some money.
I realize how difficult it is to be in the music business for an extended period of time. I mean, especially with the amount of competition,
absolutely,
product, especially now with internet. I mean, you're up against everybody.
Yeah,
and it's like like my father told me, when he was in the medical profession. He was a dentist. He said, I'm a dentist now. I put that sign in front of my office. I'm a dentist forever.
Sure.
I retire. You better keep making hit records, dude. Or you will go on.
It's sad but true. Sad but true.
And that's the truth. And you see, that's what kind of like is the difference. It's stability, And so if you're going to be in this business, you're taking a chance. And that's why a lot of the people today, especially, they back themselves up with another career. They have, maybe a degree or something they could fall back on.
Sure.
I mean, I have a lot of friends who are, they're like after the fact musicians. I mean, they were bankers. They're very successful. Now they play.
Right.
That's the safest way to do it.
That's the safe way. Exactly. You did it the old-fashioned way, though.
Exactly.
So in the 70s, then, once the Rascals broke up, you created and formed the band Treasure, right? And you found Vinnie Cusano, who went on to be Vinnie Vincent in Kiss. How did you find Vinnie Cusano? And talk about Treasure a little bit.
Again, I was on Epic, at that time. And Boston was happening. Now, the original album I did on Epic, they wanted me to do a, adult contemporary. And I did. I had a hit with it called Only a Lonely Heart Sees. And then they had this group Boston, and I said, man, wow, why not? Why not try it? I've always felt like, you should not be typecast, even though we are all typecast, whether we like it or not.
Sure.
You should be able to do whatever you're capable of doing. Hopefully your audience will like it.
Right.
Well, I was doing an album for one of the Blood, Sweat, and Tears members, Fred Lipsius, up in Connecticut. I was doing that. And I was in town of Bridgeport, and I needed a guitarist for the project. And the owner of their studio, his name is Paul Leka, Leka. He got a kid in town here, man. He's very good. That's how I found Vinnie. And he came in, and I said, like, wow.
Right. Hello,
man. Really good. Really good. Insane, but good. Yeah. And so, with all due respect to my dear friend G. Cornish, this was a hell of a guitar player.
Right.
So I said, why don't we try something? Why don't we try something? So we did a couple of demos for Epic. And I had another friend of mine, a young fellow, Jack Scarangello, a drummer. They loved it.
Sure.
He said, go for it, man. So that's how that happened.
And what was it like working with Vinnie? Because there's some people have said in the years that gone by that he was difficult to work with, but I get the impression, because I believe you guys were even friendly outside of the band, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, prior to that, our families were. No, nobody's really difficult to work with until, they start thinking that, more important than they are.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that hadn't happened yet. We were just starting out. So he was a young guy, man, you know, and he was happy to be making records and be out of, you know, the little Connecticut place and go to the big New York place. And look what happened to him.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Yeah, he went on from us to Kiss, you know, and then he went on to become, you know, very, very well known in his genre, which is, you know,
Agreed.
the guitar playing metal guy.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, when he joined Kiss, did they reach out? Obviously, you're experienced. You've got a great career at that point. Did they reach out to you to ask for any opinion on him, or no?
Oh, no,
surprising.
No.
Wow. Okay.
No, they just heard him, and however they did that, they heard. It was the same thing, you know, when we had, you know, our new Rascals band, and when we did Columbia, I had this fellow by the name of Buzzy Featon, you know, with guitars, another phenomenal guitarist, you know, and Stevie Wonder heard him, brought him to work with him.
Right. Right.
So, you know, I mean, basically, you know, if they're available, and you know, I mean, you know, it was time for him to move on and to continue to grow, and that's a heck of an opportunity for him. You know,
it was. Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. Now, I've heard him recently say that he'd love to connect with you again. Have you spoke to him at all in the last couple of decades?
Oh yeah, sure, yeah.
Any chance you guys would work together again?
I don't know if we work together, but we live in the same town. You know, we're both in Nashville. You know, but yeah, we kind of had a separation for a number of reasons, which I won't go into.
Fair enough. Yeah.
But you know, like he did reach out, you know, and it's good to hear he's back on his feet and he's doing okay. Yeah, absolutely.
So you mentioned the Beatles before, and you also got at one point to play with Ringo Starr's All-Star Band. What was that like for you?
That was great. You know, he's such a nice man, and I made a lot of good friends during that tour, because we had Randy Bachman, we had Mark Farner, we had Billy Preston, John Entwistle, you know, his son Zach Starr. You know, we got a really a chance to travel internationally, which kind of came after the Rascals' 1970, 72 breakup. The whole world, as I say, is open up now. I got a chance to travel to other countries, which I really enjoy. And then he's a great guy.
Sure.
So it was very interesting. It was fun. And as I said, I got to know some other people who become lifelong friends. Some of them are gone, unfortunately. But,
unfortunately, right? Right.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Billy Preston, and if I'm not mistaken, he was the one that played organ on the original version of Good Lovin'. Is that correct?
No.
No, I thought he was. I thought he was in the band The Olympics and played keyboard organ with them.
I don't know that.
Oh, I thought
I don't think so. I have no idea.
I'll double check that. Yeah.
I don't know that there was an organ on the original thing. The Olympics were a singing group.
Right. Okay.
They weren't a playing group, so whoever was on the session, but I don't think Billy was on that, because I don't think they had an organ on. I think they had their version was really interesting. It was a Latin version.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so perhaps I read that incorrectly then. So, and then you guys.
You see, that's why I wrote the book. You understand?
And that's exactly what I was going to say. That's why it's good to do these things and to have a book to set the record straight.
At least you can set the record straight, a la Felix Cavaliere. Yeah.
Exactly. Now, and the book cover, if I'm not mistaken, is a photograph from Linda McCartney, correct?
Correct. Yes.
That's nice. Very nice.
Yes.
Is it something? Did you stay in contact with Paul and Linda over the years? Obviously, she's since passed.
Yeah, to a degree, you know, as much as you can stay in contact with a god, you know, you know, but yes, she was a wonderful, charming lady, and she used to be a photographer before she was married to Paul. Yep. And she came and used to photograph all of us. She made some lovely books. If people haven't seen them, they're probably available. And that was one of the photos that I always liked. Yeah. So her estate was kind enough to let us use that, which I really appreciate.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And then, so where could people find the book, if they want to order it from you?
Well, right now, we're pre-selling it on FelixCavalieremusic.com.
Okay.
And if you don't know how to spell that, I can spell it for you. But
go ahead and spell it for anybody listening.
FelixCavalieremusic.com. And, we're offering the first copies to be autographed, and just trying to get an idea, feel of what's out there for it. It took a long time to do. And, the interesting thing is that, again, during the pandemic, we had chapters to add because, you know, when does it end? Well, it still hasn't ended. The book
No.
may, but we're not stopping. I'm still going. You know, we're going to be touring, as they say, this summer. We got a CD coming out. We got awards coming up. All kinds of new things, you know, and, you know, why not? Why not? Just keep
Absolutely.
going till you can't.
And you just re-recorded Beautiful Morning with your bands, is that correct?
Well, we recorded it for a Zoom.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, we did during the pandemic. We did a live concert in front of no one.
Okay.
And let me tell you, I was exhausted after that. Without an audience, you really, really get tired.
Sure.
So yeah, we did a lot of re-recording, so to speak. You know, for the Zoom, it did okay. It was we were able to show it a few times to armed forces people, and it was an interesting experience with no one there.
Absolutely. So the newest thing that a lot of artists and bands are doing is selling their music catalog. And I think Sting just sold his this weekend for $300 million or something crazy like that. So do you own your music catalog? And if you do, would you sell it? Nah, that's too bad. That's too bad.
Well, again, you know, like Sting, you know, is a solo artist.
Yep.
So he had complete control over his stuff and his life. You know, we didn't. And, you know, then to go into the reasons why we don't have control is to get into really difficult, troubled waters because, you know, as I say, it's music business. It's not music.
Mm-hmm.
The business part of the Rascals was not good. And the music part was very good.
Right.
So, you know, like you got to deal with that. You know, it's the way it is. It's the way the cookie crumbles.
Right. Well,
he's a good businessman, Mr. Sting.
He is. And, you know, there's a big difference between the 80s and the 60s when you started also. I'll say that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But obviously, business is business. And like I say, if you're going to treat business properly, you have to either hire people and listen to them or shut up.
Right. Very funny. Now, I know in the past I've heard that the Rascals, some of the original members, there's been health issues. Understandably, we're all getting older every day. Do you think there's a chance even just for one song you guys would ever get back together for one song TV or whatever it is?
You know what, man? Got to be real. I really don't think that's possible.
Mm-hmm.
Health-wise. There's some health issues.
Yep.
And there's other issues as well. I think that the last shot we had was 2019. I tried to put a last, I want to say farewell to it, because, you know, people do farewell to us, but they're not going anywhere. They're just
farewell and see you next year.
But I thought it would be a good idea to do 3 or 4 cities.
Sure.
You know, for example, Hawaii, which we were huge in, Los Angeles, Chicago, New York. Goodbye.
Right.
I couldn't do it. I couldn't put it together. So if I couldn't do it in 2019, I definitely can't do it in 2022. Sorry.
No, look, that's understandable.
I'd like to, but, you know, it's not possible.
Understandable. Well, 2022 is going to be a great year for you. Book, tour, anything else that you want your fans and the viewers of the show to know about?
Still coming, man. Still popping. Thank you so much for your time, Mike. I appreciate it. And I hope everybody enjoys this podcast today.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I know that they will. Thank you, Felix, for your time. It's great to talk to a legend like yourself. One more time for the people listening, where can they find the book?
FelixCavalieremusic.com.
Excellent. And signed if you pre-order it. It's signed if you pre-order it. So rock on, Felix. Stay safe. We hope to see you out on the road this year.
Thank you, but I appreciate your time. Take care of yourself.
Likewise. Take it easy. Bye-bye.
Alrighty, there you have it. I'd like to thank Felix for taking some time out talking all about his amazing career, his touring plans for this summer, as well as his new book. I would certainly recommend you go pre-ordering that book at FelixCavalieremusic.com if you want to get a signed copy of that. It sounds like it's going to be a great read. Thanks so much, Felix, for spending some time with me today. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit that subscribe button below. If you're listening to one of my podcasts, subscribe over there as well. Also, head on over to Facebook and follow my page, The Rock Experience with Mike Brunn, where each and every day we talk about all the rock and roll music that you love. You can also follow me on Instagram and Twitter as well. That's it for this episode. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. See you all next time.